Why did you pick Patio Enclosures? Why did you select a Stanek window? And what were the things that you looked at or touched that led you to us? And this is actually a bit of the holy grail in the direct-to-consumer business, is to understand what's the source of people's interests and how do you feed that interest. And in most cases, what the data will tell you is it's not any one particular thing. I didn't go to the website. I didn't hear an ad. It's typically, on average, there's 12 touch points before somebody actually will get to the point where they'll pick up the phone.
Let's discover the Cleveland entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are telling the stories of its entrepreneurs and those supporting them. Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today I had the pleasure of speaking with Ed Weinfurtner, who is the executive chairman of Great Day Improvements and co-founder at Blue Olive Partners. Ed is an entrepreneur at heart and has been an investor, operator, and board member in a variety of privately held businesses over the past 40 years, developing specific expertise in direct-to-consumer home improvement, distribution, and manufacturing businesses. Most recently at the helm of Great Day Improvements, he's grown the company by an order of magnitude from $44 million to $922 million in sales in just 7 years. In the last year alone, the company grew its remodeling jobs from 9,000 the year prior to nearly 68,000 this year. As one of the largest Northeast Ohio companies, employing more than 2,100 people, Great Day Improvements is a vertically integrated, direct-to-consumer provider of home remodeling and premium building products, which includes Patio Enclosures, brand sunrooms and screen rooms, Stanek brand windows and doors, Apex Energy Solutions energy-efficient windows and doors, and Hartshorn Custom Contracting pool enclosures. Since Ed had acquired the business in 2014, it has quadrupled in size and is now ranked as the 11th largest residential remodeling company in the whole U.S. by Qualified Remodeler. It was recently named among the fastest growing private companies in America by Inc. magazine and by Crain's Cleveland Business as the fastest growing privately held business in Northeast Ohio. I really enjoyed Ed's reflection on his own career and learning how he has navigated the business through the pandemic and the deluge of downstream headwinds to his business, from labor shortages to inflated material costs, to double down on the company's core competency and find success through it. Please enjoy my conversation with Ed Weinfurtner. Looking forward today, Ed, to talking with you really about a variety of topics and kind of the breadth of your kind of professional journey and experience, en route to Great Day Improvements, where I think we'll spend, a good portion of the conversation here today. I'd love to just get a sense for, what drew you to the world of entrepreneurship, particularly in the industries that you have interest and experience in, from manufacturing to electronics. Where did the impetus for that actually come from?
Yeah, well, first, Jeffrey, let me just say I'm honored that you are humbled that you would even be interested in me and my background and all that. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My father, when he was maybe 40-ish, he had 4 little kids at home. He quit his job and started selling, at the time, electrical control panel products out of the basement of our house. And so that led to there being always projects, product modifications, boxes to be packed. So when I was little, I'd earn a penny a piece or whatever to do some sort of project for him to get things going. So I mean like really little, like 10 years old, kind of little, and so right. I grew with that, up with that, and a lot of conversation around the dinner table about business and the challenges and everything that comes with that. And so it's not only me, I have 2 brothers and a sister, and my brothers they're entrepreneurs as well. Still to this day, we've done some things together and so on. So it's born and raised into the practice of being an entrepreneur.
You have kind of a breadth of experience in serial entrepreneurship at this point. Maybe take us through some of those experiences with Maverick, electronics and Mega, and just kind of working your way through your career, where the inspiration for those came from, how you found yourself thinking through those opportunities, what questions were you asking? How did those come to be?
Many times in a family business, so my dad was an entrepreneur, right? And many times then
Yep.
well, do the kids get involved, and you're the son of the boss, and all the dynamics are kind of weird, and or maybe the dad retires and looks over the shoulder because he still has a financial interest. And my dad was different in that he hit a point he was ready to retire, and so I was coming out of school, and basically it was the sooner that I could help him and get up to speed so he could retire, that was it. And he had the business that he started when we were kids was a small business. There was 10 people, a little less than $3 million in revenue, selling in northeastern Ohio, electrical control panel parts, right? And nobody grows up to say, hey, someday I'm going to sell electrical control panel pieces parts, but the opportunity presented itself. He needed help to get into retirement. And so my two brothers and myself came in and we bought the business. So it wasn't that he was there looking over our shoulder with a financial interest. We found ourselves having a small business to run. And I don't know, I was 24 years old or something like that. I mean, and we sold parts that there was opportunity. This is a long time ago. This was in early 1980s, and really with the advent of the printed circuit board and printed circuit board controls, and we saw opportunity to shift from the more heavy electrical control stuff to more printed circuit board control. And we got involved in some product lines that were involved in the interconnection of printed circuit boards, so wire, cable, connecting wire to board to board, this kind of thing. And we were selling as a distributor to original equipment manufacturing companies. So our deal was trying to get our products designed into theirs, and every time they'd make one, they'd buy parts from us. And that was right place, right time. Electronics and printed circuit board control obviously kind of took off. And so we went from being a very small little business in northeastern Ohio over the course of the next, I guess it was 13, 14 years, to becoming a multi-regional distributor covering the Midwest and Southeast United States. We expanded we had, I think, 12 locations and 250 people and 50-some million in revenue. And so we had a very good run. And through that, we also got involved in the assembly of some of these electronic parts and cable assemblies. And we founded a business called Maverick Electronics, which makes electronic cable assemblies, which are a natural sort of associated selling product. And that was all good. It was fun. It was with my brothers. Being in a family business, you hear horror stories and that. We were the success story where we got along. Business was good. I think that helped. My older brother, Carl, he was a CFO and a finance guy. My younger brother, Jim, was the sales and marketing guy. And so neither one of them wanted to do what the other was doing. And I was the one in between and was always thinking of ways to try and make the business grow and move. And so we had a really good run. We ended up getting the proverbial offer we couldn't refuse by a company that was in the same business. They had the East Coast and the West Coast. And so by combining with us, it made them a national company. And we sold the business in 1998. So that early success then sort of propelled me on a path to having more resources to do more entrepreneurial things. So I got back involved in electronics for a little bit. Through the course of things, met up with a couple of other people here in Cleveland that were successful people, business operators. So they had some capital to invest, and they had operating expertise. And so together we formed what we called Blue Olive Partners, a not so formal group. But, in the private equity world, we would have what they call an independent sponsor model, which is a fancy way for saying, if we found an investment we'd like, we'd work with people that we knew to raise money to pursue it. And so that led me on a path to get involved in a couple of different things. And then we'll fast forward to 2014, opportunity came up with Patio Enclosures. And I know you're from New York, but if you grew up in Cleveland, Patio Enclosures and the Patio Enclosures commercials, they were endless. And everybody knows the Patio Enclosures jingle, the product brand, sunrooms and porch enclosures, and that been around. At that time, it was 40 years. Now it's over 50 years. Because of the experience I had at Pella with the direct-to-consumer model, this is what Patio Enclosures was running, and the opportunity presented itself to make an investment and help to lead the business. I would say, being as respectful as I can, the company had lost its way a little bit in terms of its focus shifting away from just the Patio Enclosures product. They were doing a lot of things in the backyard. So it was, you want a sunroom, and then there's a deck, and then there's a patio, and you want to do a backyard barbecue, and we're cutting into your house to put the sunroom on, and that means interior. And they would say they were doing lots of things that were outside of the scope, and so I saw opportunity to narrow the scope to what it was that the company was good at, which was sunrooms, porch enclosures, and they had the Stanek window product line as well. So replacement windows, sunrooms, and enclosures. So saw the opportunity there. The other piece of this is because the business is direct to consumer, and this is what I learned through the previous experience was, there is an ownership of the relationship with the customer in terms of, what the customer sees our materials and that engages with us. And in the case with a sunroom, there's people that have, they've seen them. I would love to have a sunroom, but never thought I could afford it, or I've always whatever. So part of it was us engaging with them, helping to create a vision, helping to figure out if what they wanted to do with their home could be designed, could it be achieved, and so on. So the relation starts with those kind of thoughts, and getting people to the point where they then will contact us and have a design consultant come out and sit down with them and figure out the feasibility of a project and let them know the range of options that's there, and so on. And then Patio Enclosures is also the manufacturer. The stuff's all manufactured here in Macedonia, and the installer. And we provide service and support. The full customer experience is directly with us. It's the proverbial, there's no middleman.
Right. You've got the full vertical integration approach to this model.
So, the good news and the bad news is there's nobody else but us. And so if something's not right, we've got to make it right because it's us. We're responsible. And if it goes well, then we're responsible for that too. But one of the things that we began to do was, one advantage of having direct interaction with customers and control of the relationship is you can then survey people to gauge how are things going. So, for example, if you invite a Patio Enclosures person to your home, the design consultant comes in, we'll go through things and so on. Within, I don't know, I think it's 48 hours, you're going to get a survey that said, how did things go? Right? So we do a lot of in-process surveys, and they have plenty of feedback to give.
Sure.
Good, bad, and different, right? And so it was, well, we really ought to listen to that feedback, right? And so it was a matter of instituting a lot of things to collect data, collect information, build metrics and performance indicators, KPIs on how we're doing, and then driving. What I learned through all those years in manufacturing, driving for continuous improvement, right? So we would get it back, and let's say the surveys were only say 80% satisfied. It's like, okay, the goal is we're not going to be 100% satisfied tomorrow, but the goal is let's get to 81, and then it's 82, and so we then developed the metrics, the scoreboard, if you will. And this is how we're keeping track of ourselves based upon direct, unfiltered feedback from the people that we're trying to serve. And then further, getting information about trying to understand how did a consumer engage with us in the first place? Why did you pick Patio Enclosures? Why did you select a Stanek window? And what were the things that you looked at or touched that led you to us? And this is actually a bit of the holy grail in the direct-to-consumer business, is to understand what's the source of people's interests and how do you feed that interest. And in most cases, what the data will tell you is it's not any one particular thing. I didn't go to the website. I didn't hear an ad. It's typically, on average, there's 12 touch points before somebody actually will get to the point where they'll pick up the phone.
Right. I imagine, particularly for a purchase, a consideration of this magnitude in people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So we then started collecting data to understand that. And then it was the things that were helping people to find us, helping people to understand what we could do for them. It was like, well, these things are bringing people to us. We need to do more of those things. This continuous improvement thing. Like,
right. Do more of the things that work.
Yeah. So we launched a really sophisticated strategy, which was, if we spend money in advertising or in a certain venue, and it had a lot of people indicating that was something that mattered to them, bringing them to us, was do more of that. And if it didn't do that, then do less of that. So we started building the analytics, the database, if you will, for that. Started collecting that over the course of time. And what we learned was that feeding the things that worked broadened the interest in the product and ended up with us having more satisfied customers. So we then thought, well, if we accelerated the investment in the business into these areas, we could get more of the same, more consumer interest, higher levels of satisfaction with those that interact with us. And so the business started, between that and a strict product focus, the business started to accelerate.
I know there's a few layers to this, but how do you kind of balance that intentionality on focus with some of the maybe parallel approach to growth strategy via acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
How do you kind of align those two to ensure that you can build a cohesion around those pieces while maintaining a specific focus on the things are working?
So I would say, Jeffrey, at that time, our focus was very heavy on these pieces I was just rambling about. It's the business model and the customer. You've read Good to Great, the flywheel of success. What is the flywheel? The flywheel was reaching out in effective ways to consumers to educate them on things that we could do that would help them improve how they live in their homes, right? And then sort of bring them into the process and us going through and doing that process in a way that left a high percentage of people feeling very satisfied. It's construction. Things are messy. Not everybody's 100% satisfied. We try really hard. But, it's always about trying to, wherever that, and so it's that and understanding that business model and that, feeding that flywheel. Mm-hmm. And the business was also developing. One of the things that I did in 2015 was recruited in a guy that I had met through the Pella Network as our CEO. And he had worked with Pella, and in between the time that I had met him at Pella, he also ran a good portion of the Anderson Renewal business. So another direct-to-consumer business in the window space. So between his experience and mine, we both had been operating with the top-tier brands in the industry. And so he brought some additional knowledge and expertise. And so we really got things going. So to your question, as far as acquisition and that, at that time, so 2015, 16, 17, we were more focused on, I would say, building and validating the model and refining the model, the business model. And then as the story goes, once we became confident in it, we invested in it a bit more. So we put a decent amount of money in 17 to really drive the things that we thought we believed in. We thought that that would be effective, and that worked really well. And so then it put us in a place where we thought, boy, we could start to expand the model. Now, Patio Enclosures, when I got there, had 12 locations, all in the sort of the Midwest, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic United States. And we sold the Stanek window products in 3 markets: Cleveland, Buffalo, and Milwaukee. And so we thought that the right strategy would be to see if we could open new locations and put the model in place and grow it. So that's what we did. So in 2018, we opened 4 locations, all relatively close to locations we had. So in existing rough geography. So for example, we went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we were in Baltimore and Philly, right? So we were able to support these expansion moves with locations that were nearby. And we had evolved into a sort of a more regional structure. So each region was opening a new location. So we opened 4 locations, and that went phenomenal, right? It exceeded all the plans and expectations that we had. And so then in 2019, I think we opened 9 locations. And so that was, we were starting to things were starting to accelerate. And that's then when the topic of acquisition and going to more strategic transactions, in addition to the sort of greenfield location strategy, started to take hold.
And that comes nearing on a time where, obviously over the past few years, we've gone through this pandemic, but I'd love to, hear the recent story of how, you mentioned, construction, it can be a messy business, particularly in light of the labor shortages of the last few years and the simultaneous skyrocketing demand for home improvement projects, and just how going into that with the work you had done over the previous few years as the company's growing, what did that look like?
You're right. I mean, it's so we're running our playbook. We're opening new locations. We did an acquisition of a company down in Florida that made enclosures that were more appropriate for the southern markets. So we're things are going good. We're rolling into 2020 with plans to open, I think it was 15 locations, and we were starting out gangbusters. Then of course COVID hits. Well, like everybody in the beginning, we were shocked and all that, but we fairly quickly realized that this was not a bad thing for businesses in the home improvement space, because people were home a lot, right?
Right.
So the first 2-3 weeks, first month or so, a lot of people pulled way back. We pulled in, and then quickly realized that we need to do the opposite, and we need to double down and be aggressive. And so we took the location expansion plan, and we put plans in place. So in 20, we opened 15 locations, and we opened 21 locations in 21. The view was it's an entrepreneurial thing, right? The market opportunity, and we have all these sort of metrics, and we're close to the customer. We're getting feedback, and the level of interest is, all of the dials, so to speak, are indicating that we can keep going. We can go faster. And
right.
If you're an entrepreneur, you run. It's like, all right, let's go.
How challenging of a decision was that to make in this context where everyone else is doing the exact opposite, like knowing that this is the right opportunity to double down on?
You're going to think I'm making this up, but it was the decision was easy, and it was easy because we had the model, and we had the data, right? And the data said, if we do these things, this is the kind of outcomes that we could achieve. And it also said, and if we stop, you're then guaranteeing that your business is going to flatline or go down. And so it was, the only decision was to double down and sprint. And it proved to be the right call, but I can't say it wasn't an intuition thing. It was a belief in the model and the analytics and the information that we had and the systems and what it was telling us, right? And And one of the beautiful things about this model is the cost structure, that everything is variable. And so if you're managing it right, the expenses and so on varies with whatever the volume is. If the volume picks up, now when the volume picked up and we're trying to run with the uptick, it gets to the heart of the question you asked a couple of minutes ago, which is how did you staff and how did you manage that? And the answer to that was we ran hard and fast, and fortunately we had, I'd like to think, a culture where people understood the objectives and they have an ownership attitude, and they're incentivized to drive for growth and all that. And the team, for the most part, embraced the challenge and stepped up in it in a big way to, and it was the most challenging time I've been through as a business operator, because it's hard. I mean, you got all these things going, but at the same time, you're worried about people's health and their safety, and you don't want to do anything to put people into an environment or situation where it's puts them in harm's way. And every individual had their own individual take on the situation and their views on it, and all deeply personal but highly emotional. And so we had to spend a lot more time listening and trying to be sensitive to what people are thinking and what they're feeling. And we adopted a couple of strategies that have actually served us well as we got into some acquisitions later on here that I'm sure we'll talk about. But it's, as leaders, it's the Ted Lasso, the quote, be curious, not judgmental, right? So our mission was to just be curious, try and understand what's going on and right? Don't make any judgments, just try and understand it. So it's be curious, not judgmental. It's, seek to understand.
Right.
And once you understand, then good things flow from there. At least I'd like to think, or more good things than bad things. I don't know, but that was, so part of that was what carried us through. Part of it was you just keep trying stuff, so on the, how do we find people? How do we find good people? How do we find people that are willing to sort of step into the environment that we've got, where it was fast paced, high pressure, a lot going on. And then you got the supply chain problems on top of that. So we're making commitments to customers we thought we could keep. And then next thing, something blew up behind the scenes, and our lead times are slipping out. So the communication, the challenges of communicating were just huge. I think the collective grade on how we did with all that, I guess it would depend on who you talk to, but I kind of view it like customers vote with their dollars in that, and the business grew a ton. So the organic business growth through that stretch with all these locations and that was phenomenal. Even the company grew, not counting acquisitions, it grew 84% in 21. The core business.
Wow.
It was a lot of work by a lot of people. And people that just trying to keep the right mindset, the right attitude.
How do you then take that kind of exponential growth that you've experienced and charted as a company over the last few years and kind of turn your lens towards the future, where you have to kind of manage the cyclical nature of this business? I don't have the numbers here, but my intuition would be that perhaps people are not going to have that same desire or interest, like the demand necessarily for home improvement at the scale that they were over the pandemic. So, right, like how do you think about going forward? Where are the opportunities you're excited about, and just kind of managing those more, I don't know, macroeconomic trends?
Well, Jeffrey, it's fascinating, right? So as we look at sort of the environment that we're in now, interest rates are going up. The price of a home has, existing home, new home, it's gone. They're up at record levels. So if you're building homes or you're selling homes, and mortgage rates now are north of 7%, and
Yep.
people have existing fixed rate loans that they locked in when the rate was 2.8%. There's a lot of people that aren't going to be moving. Price of homes are too expensive, and they're not leaving behind. They can't afford to redo a mortgage, right? And a lot of people even refinance their mortgages and all that and locked in at low rates. So so the lens is, new construction housing is in for a rough stretch. Okay, but there's a different perspective here, which is the perspective that we have, which is, so that what that means is, and by the way, you're talking about the shortage of homes that relative to the number of people that are looking for them, right? So what does that mean? That means people that are in their homes that want more, they need more, they're around the home, they're working from home, they got more kids, whatever, they need more space, they want to take care of their homes. What's going to happen? People are going to continue to remodel. If anything, the need and desire for remodeling is going to increase during this stretch. And if you take that along with some of the other trends that COVID really accelerated, which is people spending more time in their home, a lot more people work from home, so the desire for high quality space in their home is higher. People doing stuff that connects their home to their backyard. Outdoor backyard living, backyard patios and all that. And that's a great concept, except if you live in Cleveland, and it's nice to have a room that you could sit outside by the fire pit, but come inside into your sunroom and all that. And the other side of it is, one of the things we didn't talk about was at the end of 21, we did get aggressive. There were a couple of businesses in our space that became available for sale, and we thought that the combination of the Patio Enclosures brand with some of these top-rated window companies would be a great combination. And so we partnered up with the guys from Universal Windows Direct, and so we acquired Universal Windows Direct November of 21, and on the heels of that, we acquired Champion Windows and Home Exteriors in December of 21, and so that took us from a company that had 60 locations to a company that is essentially national now, 135 locations in 77 markets. And so part of that move, Jeffrey, sort of, it diversified our product offering. It's this time of year, people, it starts to get cold, and people realize, I got to do something with these windows that they're drafting, they don't close right, and so replacing windows often is more of a need. So we strategically wanted a better balance of needs versus wants, and so that is proven to be a really good move for the company.
So what? It's really a fascinating story. I love to maybe bookend it with some reflections that you have on the whole journey. Perhaps like what through your time and focus in kind of the spaces you've been operating in, what has surprised you? What do people not understand about it that maybe you'd like them to? What are some of the things you've taken with you?
There's this myth that it's about the entrepreneur, right? It's like, oh, there's this guy Ed, and the truth is, it's not about me at all, right? It's about a team of people coming together with common goals and a mission and getting things done. Especially at this point, I'm like the spokesman. I don't install windows and build something, right? I mean, it's about teams and people and being respectful and showing appreciation. And so, I started out by saying I had this belief that what made us successful in electronics could translate to other businesses. You've got to build trust. People need to be able to believe you and what it is that you say, whether you're selling them a window replacement job or you're trying to determine who you're going to work with, right? It's about building trust, credibility, rapport, and getting with people that are like-minded and people that want to win. And then you can define how you win, and you make sure that everybody shares in the game. It's those kind of things I think are the fundamentals. It's all the businesses in that I've been involved with. I mean, that's and in those couple of scenarios I described that things were bad, I mean, the trust components, they totally broken down, right? And people are worried about themselves. And so it sounds trite and obvious and all that, but it's true as you look to the sort of fundamentals as to what works and why it works. And people can see through, a guy that sits in my chair, if they're a BSer, people, they pick it up right away, right? If you don't really live it and you don't give a damn and you don't really care about them, people know. And so I find that the key is you're trying to just talk to people and listen to people. And I do. I think this mantra I was talking about before about, be curious, not judgmental, and seeking to understand, and then
Yes.
finding ways to create everybody wins kind of scenarios and communicate a lot. That's what works.
I think it is often the trite but true things that hold, but perhaps because they are so simple and it's, you got to treat people how you would like to be treated and take care of them, and those carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not sure where exactly I picked it up along the way, but we have a thing that we put together. It's called the Team Commandments, and at this point, well, it's interesting. So I don't know where I picked them up. This was probably 25 years ago, and I'd sent it out because it just sort of resonated with me. And and it's things like, number one is help each other to be right, not wrong. 2 is look for ways to make new ideas work, not reasons they won't. Number 3, if in doubt, check it out. Don't make negative assumptions about each other, right? And help each other win. Take pride in each other's victories. And then down to the last one is have fun, right? And it's this sort of basic stuff. But what I noticed was I'd go to visit a location, or whatever, and somebody would have printed it out and pinned the thing up on their cubicle or in the office or in the lunchroom. It's like, wow. And so this has become a staple of everywhere that I've gone, and it's gotten enough traction at Great Day at this point to be like, hey, you got to find new ways to make the idea work. So in some ways it's really, really uncomplicated, but it's not simple.
Well, we'll close it out with the traditional closing question that I have for everyone on the show, which is really tied to just Cleveland and less about business, but for your favorite hidden gem in the city.
Oh, well, there's a Napoleon-style pizza place in Chagrin Falls. It's right on the Chagrin River, overlooking the falls. It's called Italian, and they have the best pizza in all of Cleveland. Naples, Italy style, so it's made with the Caputo dough. So it's American pizza is really cheesy and doughy and that, and this is not. It's so Italian at Chagrin Falls.
Excellent. Well, Ed, I really appreciate you coming on and for sharing your story and the work you're doing.
Appreciate the interest, and it's been a lot of fun.
If folks had anything they wanted to follow up with you about, questions, thoughts, what would be the best way for them to do so?
I'm pretty easy to find. Weinfurtner is not a common name. So a quick Google will get you to links. My contact information's out there for the world to see.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ed.
All right, bud. Thank you.
That's all for this week. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. So if you have any feedback, please send over an email to jeffrey@layoftheland.fm or find us on Twitter @podlayoftheland or @sternhefe, JEFE. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please reach out as well and let us know. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or on your preferred podcast player. Your support goes a long way to help us spread the word and continue to bring the Cleveland founders and builders we love having on the show. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. The Lay of the Land podcast was developed in collaboration with the Up Company LLC. At the time of this recording, unless otherwise indicated, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the company which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.